Today we're going to talk about feedback mechanisms in animals, and the goal of this video is to explain how the regulation of body temperature and blood sugar helps maintain essential life processes. So let's start with body heat. Why is body heat important? Well, you have essential life processes, things that are required for you to survive. And these are carried out through chemical reactions inside your cells. But these chemical reactions require something called enzymes. Enzymes are biological catalysts. A catalyst is something that speeds up a reaction. So basically, all the little reactions that are happening inside your cells require enzymes. And enzymes need a certain optimum temperature in order to function efficiently. Now, if your body temperature gets above whatever that optimum temperature is, the enzyme can get damaged, and then the reactions inside your cells don't proceed, and then you can't carry out the essential life functions that you need. If the body temperature gets below the optimum temperature, the reaction proceeds very slowly, in some cases, too slowly. So, this, for example, to make this practical, you see this little boy, he's running a fever. Um, when you're running a fever, you're above that optimum temperature for these enzymes. And so what you see at the bottom of the screen is a normal enzyme. But if you continue to run a really high fever, that enzyme can change its shape, and then it can't carry out the reactions that it's uh, used in. And so then your essential life processes and various body functions, they can't happen. So that's why running a fever is dangerous. It actually can denature your enzymes. It can cause them to change shape the way you see in this image, and then they can't carry out the reactions that they need to. I didn't show you an image of if you get too cold, but you can imagine if you were outside in extreme temperatures and didn't have the proper uh, coat or things like that, and you get too cold, then the reactions that your cells are doing, they get carried out too slowly, or maybe not at all, and then you run into a similar problem. So this is why body heat's really important for our survival. Now, how do our bodies regulate body temperature? Well, thermoregulation is the regulation of body temperature in the face of changes in the temperature of the environment that we're in. So there are two types of animals that that you can distinguish between these two types based on how they regulate their body temperature. So the first is a homeotherm. The second is a poikilotherm. So let me say something about each. A homeotherm maintains a constant body temperature independent of variation in the temperature of the environment that they're in. And homeotherms always thermoregulate. So they're always keeping that constant body temperature internally, even if the environment around them is changing temperature. But to thermoregulate like that all the time requires a lot of energy. Now let's talk about a poikilotherm. So poikilotherms allow their body temperature to vary with the temperature of the environment. So they're not trying to keep that constant internal, or they don't have to. It's not required of them. It can vary with the environment, and they only thermoregulate at the extremes of their temperature range. The benefit of that is it requires less energy on their part. Okay, so let's look at two examples of each type of animal here. So on the left, we have a homeotherm, and on the right, we have a poikilotherm. So this homeotherm, which is a dog, how does it thermoregulate? Well, the wool or hair or fur that's on this animal traps air next to the skin, and that provides an insulating layer that reduces heat loss and slows heat gain. They can also, heat can be generated by shivering, so they'll shiver to generate heat. In cold weather, many mammals cluster together to retain body heat. So if they're traveling in packs, they'll clump up together, and this helps retain body heat. Also, panting and sweating cool the animal down through evaporation. Mammals usually sweat or pant, but not both. So in this case, dogs pant, they don't sweat. But we, on the other hand, we don't pant, we sweat. Okay, let's look at a poikilotherm here. So this is a lizard. How does it thermoregulate? Well, it increases blood flow to the surface of its skin, and this can actually help lose heat quickly. So if they're getting too hot, they can increase blood flow to the surface, and then heat is lost from the body. What if they're too cold? Well, basking in the sun is common in lizards and snakes. The sun warms the body up, and they seek shade to cool down. Some lizards reduce points of contact with hot surfaces, like the ground. Like if they're on a bunch of rocks or something, and the rocks get very hot, they just stand on two legs instead of on all four, and this reduces the heat uptake through conduction. So these are some ways that animals thermoregulate. Now, I want to show you the specific feedback mechanism that humans use in thermoregulation. So let's say that you are running a fever, so you're above your normal body temperature. What happens? What's the feedback mechanism to help you restore you to your set point, your actual, the body temperature that you function properly at? Well, the first thing is your raised temperature, your raised body temperature, activates a heat loss center in your hypothalamus. That's this blue portion that I've got highlighted of your brain here. So if you're running a temperature, that high temperature activates a heat loss center in the hypothalamus. And the brain then sends a signal to your sweat glands, and it activates your sweat glands. And the sweat cools the body by evaporation. And when your body temperature decreases in response, the hypothalamus heat loss center shuts off. And eventually you get restored. When you continue this process long enough, it restores you back to your normal body temperature. Okay, what about if you're too cold? So if you're below the normal body temperature, the portion of the hypothalamus that promotes heat, well, let me back up slightly. If you're below your normal body temperature, this activates what's called the heat promoting center in the hypothalamus. So that basically sends a signal to the brain to heat you up because you're below your normal body temp. So that part of the brain then sends a signal to your muscles, which causes rapid contraction of those muscles. And this is what happens when you're shivering. Those are rapid contractions that are happening. And that shivering produces heat. So your body begins to warm back up. And as your body temp increases, once it gets back to its set point, the hypothalamus heat promoting center shuts off. So this is the feedback mechanism in humans for thermoregulation, I should say. So now let me finish up the second half of this video by talking about blood sugar. How is our blood sugar regulated? Before I tell you how it's regulated, it's important to understand why blood sugar is important at all. Well, glucose, that's a sugar. Glucose is the body's main source of energy. During cellular respiration, it's used to make ATP. And ATP powers these chemical reactions in your body, specifically in your cells, that are essential for life. So a moment ago, I was telling you, hey, there's all these reactions happening in your cells, and they're regulated by enzymes, and your body temperature is really important for those enzymes. But these reactions in your cells couldn't happen at all if they didn't have energy to power them, and you use ATP to power those reactions that are happening inside your cells. And you get that ATP from the glucose, the sugar that you consume in your food. Now, the glucose is circulated throughout your body through your blood. All right. So in this image at the top, I've put the structure of glucose. So this would be like one glucose molecule. And down here at the bottom, I've shown you 3 types of levels of blood sugar. So this is how much sugar's in your blood. Here's what a normal level would look like. The white balls represent the glucose molecules. If on the left here, the blood sugar could be low, so you don't have very much glucose in your blood. Or alternatively, on the right here, you could have a very high blood sugar. So this is where you have lots of sugar in your blood. Okay, so that just tells you why blood sugar is important at all. Now let's talk about the feedback mechanism in humans that regulates your blood sugar. So let's begin with this scenario. Let's say you've just eaten a meal. Well, there's sugar in the food that you just consumed, and when your body takes that food in, the sugar in that food is removed, and it's transported throughout the body through the blood, like I mentioned a moment ago. That makes the blood sugar levels increase. Once you've eaten food, the blood sugar level increases. Now, the high blood glucose is detected, and the pancreas produces insulin in response. And that insulin causes glucose in the blood to be taken into cells, decreasing your blood glucose level and restoring it back to normal. So we saw there's been a change. You went from a normal blood glucose level to a high blood glucose level, and we've seen the body's response in restoring your blood glucose level back to normal. Now let's consider this other side, the other part of this feedback mechanism. So let's say that you fasted, so you haven't been eating for an extended period of time. In that case, your blood sugar level decreases. So now you have a low blood glucose level. The low blood glucose level gets detected, and the pancreas produces glucagon in response. And the glucagon causes the liver to release glucose into the blood. And this increases your blood glucose level and restores it back to normal. So here we started with a scenario where you changed from a normal blood glucose level to a low blood glucose level because you haven't eaten in a while. And then we saw the mechanism that your body uses to restore the blood glucose level back to normal. Okay, so to sum up, we've seen how your body uses feedback mechanisms to both thermoregulate, so give you a constant body temperature, and regulate your blood glucose levels. Thermoregulation and regulating your blood glucose levels are really important for your essential life processes.